It's Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're in Orange County today. We are joined by the Mayor Pro Tem of Anaheim, James Vanderbilt. And I wanted to tell you about my upbringing. I grew up in the West San Fernando Valley. It was pretty semi-rural back then, and we had 3 cats. 2 cats, Bleachy and Cinnamon, they were great. They went outside, they were fine. But the 3rd cat, it was a rotating 3rd position, because that 3rd position, the cat was often attacked and killed by coyotes. And I can laugh about it today, but it was tragic. And coyotes continue to be a problem in Calabasas, where I grew up, and even in Anaheim. Anaheim, how is that possible?
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. I mean, Anaheim is a city of 350,000 residents. It's landlocked. It's certainly becoming very urban. But if you look at a map, a geographical map, you'll see that we have a main river that runs through there, Santa Ana River, and then there's a number of abandoned railroad right-of-ways, as well as flood control channels. So they crisscross the city in many places, especially in the central and western part. And this is an area that's been, unfortunately, reporting lots of incidents with coyotes over the last year or so, and so the city is facing a big challenge.
Right. So in other words, Anaheim is not just Disneyland.
No.
At all.
No, we reach all the way on the eastern side to the border with Riverside County, and we have a national forest on that eastern end.
And it's quite beautiful in that area, and it's quite mountainous. I mean, people don't realize that Anaheim is not flat. There's an area called Anaheim Hills, which is in the hills, and coyotes live in hills.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I spent part of my youth growing up there, and we had livestock, and we had to be careful.
In Anaheim?
In Anaheim,
Anaheim
yes.
City limits, and you had livestock.
We did.
I don't think people realize this.
It's true.
I mean, and I learned Anaheim means, what is it, Anaheim, Anna by the river?
Yeah, home by the river.
Home by the river. And so that, like you said, there's a river. And what does that river mean to the coyotes?
Well, most of the year the river is dry. The riverbed is, and it forms this opportunity because it comes from that eastern side that I mentioned all the way down to the ocean. And Anaheim is 50 square miles. That river probably touches more than half of those square miles in terms of its length and width.
But do the coyotes, are they attracted to the river because of its relative solitude? If there's water in it, which there presumably has been because we've had a wetter year, is that an attractive element to the coyotes?
Well, it's hard to say, but what we're hearing from the animal control officials is that actually coyotes are, for many years, becoming part of the urban area.
Right.
And so they're not necessarily coming from the hills, that they are finding places. And we have a golf course, for instance, in West Anaheim, and some large areas underneath some of the Southern California Edison lines that are used by agriculture or landscaping companies and nurseries. So all of this is actually available to them. And the other trend that's really important to note is that smaller dogs have become more popular as pets. A lot of families, as they get older and been empty nesters, they've chosen smaller breeds like the pugs or the chihuahuas. And so these coyotes, who aren't very big themselves, in fact, they usually just tend to range around 15 to 40 pounds, which is not a large-sized animal, but because of their fur, which is very thick, they tend to look bigger. But in terms of the competition, I mean, we used to have Doberman Pinschers. A lot of people have bigger dogs like Rottweilers. Those are probably no match to a coyote, but these smaller breeds unfortunately are, and there are much more of them now.
And what we know is the coyotes, they're becoming, at some level, more aggressive, but it's really because they're more familiar. And so they're not nervous or anxious to go into a backyard anymore. And if there is a small dog, a cat, they'll pick it up and that's dinner. And I don't want to get too crazy on this subject, but younger children, they could be at risk. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct, and that's part of the reason why I was hoping to talk about this topic today, because the city, as I mentioned, has had lots of incidents with pet animals, but there is always that risk. And so the awareness campaign that the city has started has to be robust and has to be at a high enough level to make sure we get this word out of this problem.
Let's talk about it, because like you said, you are part of that campaign. You are really pushing the message that with spring and summer being here, wildlife is more available, more, you will see the wildlife roaming in the community. But there are things that we can do to prevent unnecessary interactions. We don't need to pull guns out. We don't need to do that yet. What we need to do is be smart. So talk to us about some of the tips that you can offer.
Yeah, thank you. And that's exactly right. There are a number of studies that show that the animals actually, if they are treated rudely, in other words.
Right. No, that's a great way to say it.
You're supposed to be doing something called hazing.
Right.
And the term in this case is used for that scenario where if you see an animal, you do everything you can to make it as uncomfortable as possible in terms of making noises.
Yeah, get loud and crazy.
Loud and crazy, throw rocks, don't certainly run away. That is definitely not a thing to do.
That's the flight response, and they'll sense that, and it will attract them.
Yeah, instead you are supposed to take a strong stance, and again, these animals appear much bigger than they really are. So if you're walking with your animal, you should do so and make sure that there isn't any sort of interaction or confrontation, but you should pick up whatever's handy, or if you know this before you go for a walk, take some things that you could throw very easily. And if you have some sort of air horn, that's also an important thing to have.
That's smart. At the same time, you may not be around when a coyote lurks and creeps into your backyard, and your cat or small dog may be outside. So there are things that you can do to prevent the coyote from being even attracted. It's simple things. I mean, you think about fallen fruit from trees. I mean, this is Anaheim, orange groves, and not so much anymore, but a lot of us will have fruit trees in the backyard. What about garbage? What should we do with garbage?
Well, garbage should certainly be sealed and kept in your garage if possible. The city does issue trash cans that have a lid, but oftentimes they get overfilled and these lids are popped open.
Right.
There are other places in multifamily housing, for instance, where there are dumpsters, and these also have large lids.
Right.
But it's important for the residents to be mindful of this consequence, that leaving the lid open on these particular trash can sites will allow or encourage even coyotes to come into the area.
And there's also, if you leave out pet food, that's a recipe for a coyote or raccoon. I mean, I've seen raccoons just sit there and eat the dog food as if it's for them.
Yeah, we have raccoons in Anaheim. I saw one in right off the 5 freeway, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago. And this is, a surprise perhaps, but it is in fact a reality. So in the case of the coyotes, yeah, you have to be very vigilant, and this is key for the city to deal with this issue, because if we get everybody's cooperation and assistance, then we can deal with this head on. But if some of us are less vigilant, there might even be people out there that think feeding coyotes is a good idea.
It sadly is not. And it's really to the benefit of the coyote that you not feed them, because in the end, that gets them to create a sense of familiarity, and that puts them at risk, because then they're walking through neighborhoods, cars, they're not familiar with cars. So it's best, they're wildlife for a reason.
True.
And I just want to thank you so much for joining us, James. This is very important stuff. We want to keep our animals healthy, our kids safe, and so we appreciate this message. His name is James Vanderbilt. He is the Mayor Pro Tem of the beautiful city of Anaheim, where we are today. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're glad you joined us from Orange County on Local Edition.